I started Pilots to Rescue back in 2015 to combine my love of aviation and rescuing animals. Rescuing animals was something that started at a very early age. As a family growing up in the suburbs in Westchester County, my parents, it was just a normal thing to do to go to the local SPCA and pick out the sad dog or the sad cat that needed a loving home. So I didn't even realize at the time that you could purchase animals or full breeds or any of that stuff. I just thought, that's what you did. You went to your local pound and you picked out a mutt. So I grew up with that, but my affinity towards animals went beyond that. I was the little boy that picked up the injured bird and nursed them back to health. My neighbor had an empty animal enclosure, a big one, I guess, from a previous owner. So I asked if I could use their enclosure to put the dogs there during the day that I was taking care of. So I was very entrepreneurial at a young age, and it started with animals. So that carried throughout the theme of Pilots to Rescue, wanting to help animals. My love of aviation came from skydiving. I was living in Cincinnati at the time, and I was dating this woman who asked if I wanted to go skydiving for my birthday. And I was like, that sounds like fun. Yeah, that's basically how I started Pilots to Rescue. I raised $10,000 within 48 hours by calling all my personal friends and family and telling them I wanted to combine these two passions. Really, it's because I wanted to raise money to purchase a plane that I couldn't personally afford. That was a big motivation because there's a lot of great people already doing this type of work, not just in the air, but on the ground. This was before I started Pilots to Rescue, so I did start doing rescues with some other organizations that do this. And I took one of my best friends, who's also a pilot, Brian, and we heard about these ditch puppies. And this is a very common, very sad story, but typically the rescues we do are down south here on the East Coast. Down south, they just have lack of spaying and neutering. The municipally run shelters have smaller budgets and they have lack of space. So if the people don't claim the animals in a certain amount of time, unfortunately have to euthanize to make space. So we had heard about these ditch puppies. What happens is sometimes people want to witness the miracle of birth and they try to sell the puppies. Nobody wants to buy them. And then the local shelter says, you can't bring them here because we don't have the room. So unfortunately, what they often do is they throw them in the ditch, or they bring them in the back of, they go to a Petco and they throw them in the dumpster. They're desperate. They don't know what to do and they can't take care of these animals. So our first rescue was to rescue these 10 ditch puppies from North Carolina. And we flew them up to Connecticut, where they were eventually adopted by Loving Homes. Literally broke my heart, but it also inspired me to start this organization so that we could transport more of these animals so they have a chance of being adopted. The notifications of the rescues can be, on average, I would say, are about a week. And we get notification with one of our rescue partners, and it could be the origin or destination that initiates the rescue, that they have some dogs or cats or even wolves and sea turtles. We do those as well. The dogs and cats typically is about a week's notice. A lot of times it's that they're fit to travel now. So if they're puppies or kittens, they have to be a minimum of 8 weeks because they need to be able to get a certain amount of shots. And in other cases, it's just getting them vetted. So all their shots and their paperwork in order. A lot of times it's shorter notice than that. Any kind of times we do disaster response, or we need to get the animals out because they need to get surgery, or they're pregnant and we're concerned about the window when the puppies or kittens might be born. There are cases, more emergency use cases. But generally I would say it's about a week. So the most memorable rescues are the animals that seem to have all the odds stacked against them, but someone still is willing to adopt them. So the ones that come to mind, we rescued a dog that had cerebral palsy. There was a family in New Jersey that was willing to foster this animal until it found an adopter. This animal, we literally had to pick it up. It was a heavy animal because it didn't really have use of its hind legs. So we wanted to give the animal some relief in the grass to go pee or poop, and we had to pick this animal up and bring it over to the grass so they could do that. But it was such a loving animal, and that's another great learning lesson that we can get from these animals. Is they don't necessarily know their predicament. They're still so loving and passionate about, giving loyalty and devotion to their owners. There was also an animal early on whose name was Jelly or Surf. I think they renamed it Surf, that was blind, and it was a puppy. So it was born blind, but it didn't know anything different. It didn't know that it couldn't see. We do a lot of work with guiding eyes for the blind, and I asked that question of the CEO once. Is it better to have been born blind or have your vision and then lose it? With this puppy, it didn't know any different, obviously. The CEO of Guiding Eyes told me it's better to be born having seen and then lose your vision later, because he had that predicament and he was able to see. He remembers what blue looks like and green and what the sky looks like in the ocean. But for this dog, it was tremendous. It just, bumping into things and stuff like that. But when you pick the dog up, you don't really know its predicament. But those are the most memorable. It's the big takeaways with animals is no matter their predicament, and a lot of the animals that we rescue are from horrible conditions. When you put them in the plane, you could see that they're timid and they're scared. They have never been on a flight before. Many of them have been abused, left for dead, chained up to fences, left in ditches. But once you transport them and you get them in the other end, they really can tell they've been rescued. They come out of their shell. I like to say they come out of their shell. They're coming out of their crate. But they may come out with their tail between their legs, and it takes them a little bit of time to coax them. But I get to see them transform from those conditions. And I get the pictures and the videos of where they are once they are adopted or with their foster parents. And it's just miraculous, the change that they make. And there's tremendous takeaways you can get from animals and bring into your everyday life. So empathy and having gratitude is something I get to witness firsthand, and I get to see those transportation. So I'm able to take that in other parts of my life with people and things and animals that are less fortunate. And when you have empathy for these people and animals that are less fortunate and gratitude in your own life, miracles do happen, especially animals, how loving they are and the unconditional love and loyalty that they give their parents, their adopters. I mean, anybody who's adopted an animal knows that. It's just very inspirational. You know, if we could be a little bit more like the dogs or the cats that we adopt to our fellow humans, we would be better as a society, as a civilization.
When we paddle out into the lineup, people smile. There's no doubt, you know, and we'll take off on a wave and I hear people going, Rosie, go, Rosie. It's pretty cool. There's actually quite a few people who surf with their dogs, and then we have these competitions where they surf on their own and they're